Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my fantasy romance book haul. Alright guys, so it is currently February when I'm filming this, and I made it my goal to only read fantasy romance this month. And oh my goodness, I am so happy I did that because I am absolutely loving every single book that I am picking up. I think there was only one book that I didn't rate 5 stars, and I've already read 12 books this month. I love the fantasy romance genre. I love falling into this like magical world that also has romance, and it's so good. So I'm so excited to talk about these books with you guys. I think I have around like 12 or 13 on this list. Some of these books I bought, some of them were gifted to me, but I'm so excited to talk about them. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these fantasy romance books. All right, guys, so starting off, first up, I bought Gleam by Raven Kennedy and then Glow by Raven Kennedy. So these are books 3 and 4 in the Plated Prisoner series. I have a full spoiler and spoiler-free vlog. I will leave linked in the cards and in the description. I'm obsessed with this series right now. So I tried reading the series all the way back in 2021, and I just could not get into it. I DNF'd it. And then I tried again about a year ago. Still was not clicking, did not connect with the characters, and then I finally decided to push through this month, and now I'm obsessed. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Plated Prisoner series, it is a very loose like King Midas reimagining. We are following Arin, and Arin has been turned gold by Midas. Now Midas, similar to the original tale, everything he touches turns solid gold. So he's the king of this kingdom, and he keeps Arin as his like personal pet that he likes to show off to people. She has these gorgeous ribbons that are like coming out of her back, and she's gold, so she's pretty like fun to look at. So anyway, it's from the point of view of Arin, and Arin is just completely subservient to Midas. She does not care really about anything. She just likes drinking and kind of like dawdling her days away. She knows how to play the harp. And all she really cares is about like Midas's approval. And she looks at Midas as someone who just protects her. So the reason I think I DNF'd the book in the very beginning is because I'm used to seeing female characters in fantasy romance have their own autonomy and have their own ambition. And Arin is not that. She does not have that in the first book at all. Like I said, she's just subservient to Midas and really only cares about him. And that was just so grating to read about. But her character growth is what makes this series absolutely phenomenal. I love watching Arin go from this meek character and like see her change throughout the series. So if you are thinking about reading the Plated Prisoner series, definitely pick it up. I think it is worth all of the hype, and I cannot wait for book 5 to be released. All right, so to be honest, this next book, I don't know anything about it. I legit bought it because I saw fan art of the main couple and was like, ooh, I need to read that. So I'll admit it, I completely bought this because of fan art, and that is Hellfyre, and this is by Mariel Pomeroy. So I believe, reading the back of this book, that we were following this girl who used to be immortal and have powers, but she ended up having to give them up, and she's trying to escape her very abusive family. So she ends up making a deal with a devil-type character that she will live in this like nightmare court or this devil court for a week. And I'm assuming it's like enemies to lovers, but it sounds really good. I'm really hoping this comes out in audio just because I really prefer to listen to books rather than read them physically. But yeah, look up the fan art. I don't think I can put it in this video just because of copyright, but it was really good. So can't wait to check this book out. And next up, I purchased Vicious Bonds by Shorna Williams. So I've read some other books by this author. Wanting Mr. Kane is one of my absolute favorite age gap romances. So I was so excited when I found out that this author was going to be writing fantasy romance. Now, I'm going to be honest, had I read this or listened to this prior to buying this book, I probably wouldn't have bought it. It's not my favorite. However, I think it's enjoyable, and I do think if you are a fan of romance and you want to get into fantasy romance, this would be a good place to start. So this is following Willow, and Willow is this girl. She's in a slightly abusive relationship. She just lost her brother, and she's just kind of depressed, and she keeps hearing this voice in her head, but she's not telling anyone about it just because that's a little bit crazy. and then she starts dreaming of this guy talking to her. She keeps hearing the same guy, and he's now in her dreams. So one day she's trying to unwind, and she ends up taking a substance, laying down, and then she wakes up in another realm. And the guy whose voice was in her head is in front of her, and he can hear her voice in his head. So right away, it's kind of like a fated mates sort of feel, and we find out about his world, and it goes from there. So I didn't realize when I picked this up that the author used Peaky Blinders as an influence in writing this. This gave me all of the Thomas Shelby vibes. I love Peaky Blinders. It's one of my favorite shows. So I did enjoy that aspect of this. But yeah, I just feel like the world wasn't really fleshed out. It felt like there was a lot of tropes that we see in fantasy romance just done in mafia romance. This just felt more of like a mafia romance that just happened to have some like fantastical elements. So overall, I didn't love it, but I do think it was a fun time. I read it in like a day and a half. So if you're interested in trying out fantasy, definitely pick this up. And this next book is crazy popular right now, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. So this copy was actually purchased for me from Melissa from the Book Bar, so I will have her channel linked down below. Thank you so much. I was so excited when I got this just because everyone I know is like absolutely loving this book. This is like a vampire fantasy romance. I have not read it yet, but we're following this girl who is the adopted daughter of a vampire king. And in order to either become a vampire or like gain powers, she has to compete in these trials, but she's going up against very powerful vampires. And then one of them she ends up having like this connection with, and it goes from there. My one good friend that has read this said it reminded her a little bit of From Blood and Ash, but with trials. And she thinks I will love this. So I'm really hoping the audio is released ASAP. I know it's in production. Like currently, I've been like stalking the author's Instagram, waiting for this to be released via audio. Just because once again, I don't love reading books physically, but yeah, I can not wait to read this. And thank you again, Melissa. All right, this next book, I do not hear people talking about, and it deserves so much more hype. I loved this. So this is Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Roehirch. I hope I didn't just butcher your last name. But I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. I don't hear people talking about it. I only know about this because one of my friends on Instagram who knows my reading taste was like, hey, this book was just released via audio, and I know you love From Blood and Ash, so I think you'll really enjoy it. And they were right. I love this. So this is the first in, I believe, a 5-book series. I'm not sure if it is finished yet, but this is following Scarlet. So Scarlet is the adopted daughter of the Assassin Lord, and she has 2 sisters, also adopted, and they have been brought up since childhood to be killers. They are very good at torturing and killing, and then something happens that makes the Assassin Lord pretty much lock up Scarlet and put her in this kingdom where she has to stay, and she's completely caged, and she is not dealing with it very well. She still has to do jobs for the Assassin King, and one day she is given the name of someone she has to kill, and if she kills this person, she will be free and allowed to go and get revenge on the Fire Prince. And the Fire Prince was the person that killed her mother, which we find out. So that is pretty much where our story starts off. Then there is this general that ends up being assigned to help the king of the kingdom Scarlet is currently living in. And he starts to train Scarlet and notices some things about her that she didn't even realize herself. And the story kind of goes from there. But the most I can really say is this reminded me so much of From Blood and Ash in a good way. It still felt like a completely unique story. It had a lot of those elements that I loved from Blood and Ash. And also, it just felt a little bit more like political. It had a little bit more going on in the world, at least in this first book. I don't know about the rest of the series, but I loved this. I love this so much. I love Scarlet as a main character. She did do some frustrating things towards the end of the book, but overall, I just loved having this like killer. It kind of reminded me also of The Bridge Kingdom, for those of you who have read that and enjoyed it. Similar main character. But overall, highly recommend giving this book a try. Definitely check out the audio. I just really, really loved it. And this next book restored my faith in YA fantasy. So I haven't been reading a lot of YA fantasy recently just because I haven't been loving it. The ones that I do pick up, they're fine while I'm reading it, but like they just don't have that like emotional impact that adult fantasy has. That is not the case for The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This book is absolutely amazing, and thank you, Issa from Fun Fantasy Books, for pushing me to read this, because I owned the first book, Once Upon a Broken Heart, for probably about a year, and I never picked it up. So I can't really get into the plot of this book just because it'll give away spoilers for the first one. But the first book is following Evangeline Fox. She is this girl, and she's living in this like slightly magical world. Her parents have recently died. She's being raised by her stepmother, and her stepsister is about to marry Evangeline's one true love. So Evangeline decides she's going to run into this church and make a deal with a fate. Now, it is known in this world, you do not make deals with fates. It just ends badly, but she does it anyway. And the fate she makes a deal with is Jax, the Prince of Broken Hearts. So Jax agrees that he will stop the wedding of Evangeline's love if Evangeline will give him 3 kisses of the person of his choosing. Now, she can't kiss Jax because Jax's kiss causes like instant death, but she agrees, and the story goes from there. And I loved this second book so much. It gave me so much like A Court of Mist and Fury vibes. I've had a lot of people ask me, because I did post about this book on Instagram, if you have to read the Caraval series first. You absolutely do not have to. I actually DNF'd the Caraval series, so I never finished it, and I had no problem figuring out what was going on. I think there are characters that are referenced in the Caraval series that pop up in this book, specifically Jax, but overall, you do not have to read the original trilogy to enjoy Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I highly recommend picking up this duology. Actually, it's a series. The 3rd book comes out next year, or in September, but overall, this was so good, and I highly, highly recommend. All right, and next up we have Between Despair and Hope, and this is by Jess Wisecup. So this is the sequel to Between Wrath and Mercy. And the audio for Between Wrath and Mercy was released at the end of January, and I read it as soon as it was released, and I absolutely loved it. So Between Wrath and Mercy is following Emmeline, and she is this woman that is stuck in this loveless marriage. Luckily, she does have a daughter, and that's really her whole life, is just taking care of her daughter, and she just absolutely loves her. So at the beginning of Between Wrath and Mercy, her daughter ends up being kidnapped, and her husband is also taken by the same people. So Emmeline decides she has to ask help from the bloody Prince Rainier. So she goes off, asks for help, and together they try to get her daughter back. And I love this story. I was not expecting it to be quite so emotional, and that ending, oh my goodness. So I am so excited and really looking forward to reading this. I'm hoping the audiobook is released soon. I know the author has posted that it should be out this year. So I cannot wait to jump into this, especially with the ending of the last book. Like, I need to find out what happens. And next up, we have A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Milla Vane. This is the first book in the A Gathering of Dragons series. And I had no idea this existed. So I was on a live, someone mentioned it, I added it to my Goodreads, and since then, so many people have messaged me saying they really enjoyed this and they think that I would like it. I don't know if it actually has dragons in it. If it does, that is an added bonus. But I believe from reading the back of the book, this is following a prince whose parents were murdered. He's a barbarian prince, and he decides he's going to get revenge by killing the daughter or the princess of like the warrior people. And when he finds her, it turns out that she's not actually like a great warrior. And she asks that they get married instead and unite their people. And it goes from there. Sounds really good. It's either going to be like enemies to lovers or marriage of convenience. I love both of those tropes. So either way, I think I'm going to love this. And I look forward to diving into the series. And next up we have The Witch Collector by Carissa Weeks. I believe this is the first in a series. So we are following Raina, and in Raina's world, there is a witch collector, and every few years he comes and he takes a woman to the Frost King, and they are never seen or heard from again. So Raina's sister has recently been taken, and Raina is now decided she needs to get revenge. So when the witch collector comes, she is either going to try to kill him or make the witch collector lead her to the Frost King. And the story goes from there. I haven't heard a lot about this book. I feel like I sound like a broken record, but the audio was recently released, so I am going to be listening to this via audio, or the audio is about to come out in the very beginning of March. So I look forward to reading this. One of my friends did read this and said they really enjoyed it. It was very unique. So this should be a very good time. And last up, we have Children of the Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the Daughter of No World series. So I actually read that first book in a reading vlog that I will leave linked in the cards and in the description. And I didn't really have strong feelings on this series. I enjoyed the first book. I just didn't absolutely love it like a lot of other people. And I think that has a lot to deal with the romance. The romance is more like friends to lovers, like mentor to lovers. And I like more of like an angsty enemies to lovers type romance in my fantasy romance. So I thought it was okay, but I definitely do want to continue with the series. I've just heard amazing things and everyone seems to love this series. So I want to see what all the hype is about. So I do plan on reading the second book in the beginning of March. I might vlog reading it, still not sure. But anyway, I'm very much looking forward to continuing. Alright guys, that is it for my fantasy romance book haul. Thank you so much for watching, and please let me know down in the comments below what is your absolute favorite fantasy romance. Mine is probably still A Court of Mist and Fury, but From Blood and Ash is like a really close second. But anyway, I said this already, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!